mitigation program, an update on that, and on water testing. Spend most of our time on the cyanobacteria issue on Sunrise Lake, and we would ask to hold your questions if you can. Not recognize you until the end. Can't hear me?
Nope. A little loud, please.
Okay. We will proceed along here. This is what's going to happen today. That's me, cyanobacteria, will be myself, and Dave Miller. Dave Miller is our vice chair. And then VLAP is Cindy DeChrist. I can never say that.
DeChristopher.
She's got it.
I hope so.
Yeah. Invasive species. Good morning, have a seat. Hi. Invasive species is Joe Holtz. He's taken over the milfoil mitigation program. He couldn't be here today, so I'm going to fill in for him. And then we'll have some questions. So I hope everybody is familiar with cyanobacteria. It's a toxin called green algae by some. We've had outbreaks here on Sunrise Lake. I'll go into that in a little bit. It affects people if it's ingested. It affects pets. If your pet goes out of the green stuff and licks it, he's gone. Quick. If you ingest it, you can get sick. So cyanobacteria is in every body of water. What's the problem is the blooms. And the blooms are the green algae. And what causes the blooms? A lot of factors. Nutrients in the water, temperature, all kinds of things like that. I'm sorry for the fuzziness of this, but in 2004, 2023, these are all the cyanobacteria outbreaks in the state. Kind of fuzzy, but it kind of shows you where it is. Bacteria, this is what it looks like, depending on where you are. Most of our outbreaks on Sunrise Lake, that place right there, have been primary on the southwest part of the lake right there, primary. They have been spotted in other places, but reports primarily come from the southwest part. Okay. Everybody seen this? Everybody know where this is? All right. This is Lake Lands Beach off of Lake Shore Drive last year. This was one of the first outbreaks. In my own property, I have a beach like that very low. This is what a cyanobacteria looks like. It doesn't go out. Now, we've had some that spread out into like a big circle like you had down in Pinkham. So that's kind of what it looks like. So this is what we've had so far this year in the state. And I'm sorry, this is the current outbreak. The cyanobacteria outbreaks in the state have been primarily confined to Lake Winnipesaukee and Irwin. We've had only one warning, if you will. Now they call it alert. They're changing their vernacular. One alert. So right now, there's two places. Cobbins Pond, Graham Pond, one's in Wyndham, one's in Barton. The watches are alert. The advisories are, we're advising you not to go in the water. And there's a sign. I'll show you what there's a new sign. There's not two signs now, like an alert or a warning. One sign. Okay? So the alerts are in Lee's Pond, Long Ponds, and Callum, Moltenboro. The most I see, I get these every every week on the DES. You can sign up for the reports of what happens with Sino, what happens to beach closings and everything else. Don't send it to you on that. So I apologize for the poor clarity here. But right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fecal bacteria. E. coli, beach closure. So this is as of the other day in the state. The red are beach closures, the orange are just alerts, not warning. So you can see, and the green are previous spots. So you can see the Sino this year so far has been an interesting outbreak or lack thereof. So if you need to get information on Sino for yourself, by the way, these slides will be on the town website for you to take a look at, so you don't need to write Tim Freeman here is videotaping this. This will be on there too. So this is where you can get your information in terms of blooms. Right down this bottom one here is where if you see a bloom, how do you let somebody know? That takes you right to the state bloom report form. It's an online form, pretty easy to use. If you don't want to do it online, there is a phone number. Okay. This is the new system of warning alerts for cyanobacteria if they break out on your lake. The alert, be on the lookout. Somebody's reported a bloom, it's not heavy enough to, it's below the criteria of 70,000 parts per million, whatever it is, cells. There's no sign, it's just an alert, so no sign will be posted. The advisory is a lake-wide, if the concentration is high enough, they will put out a lake-wide warning and a sign is posted. So where are the signs posted? Legally. Only one spot on Sunrise Lake, on a public access, which would be the town beach, and that's the responsibility of the town and the health officer of posting. Any other posting, for example, Hampshire Shores Beach, Lake Lands Beach, and the two beaches over on Nicola, the Sunrise Estate Beach 1, Beach 2, that would be the responsibility of basically private owners to post what they want to post. I have ordered 4 signs. And right now they're a little short signs, and this is because of the new sign. When they come in, I will distribute those, at least one to each association to use as they see fit. And they can use those once a warning comes out. Or their advisor. Look, this is what the sign looks like. I think I have a picture over there on top of our table display. And the main thing about this is the notice, warning, we're not shutting the lake down. Just be aware of your cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria, you can be out in the middle of the lake and fine. If you don't have anything on your property, you're fine. But do your self-assessment of what you want to do. All right. Sunrise Lake, how many Sino balloons have we had? Well, the information that I found out, at least on the state website, is the state, this is an opinion, the state didn't pay a lot of attention to Sino because they didn't have a mechanism to investigate it per se until recently. So the first cyanobacteria outbreak was a warning, meaning don't go in the lake. 2016 was for 6 days. That was it. The next one, 2018, 14 days that one was down. That was quite a bit of Sino. My theory is in between and before that, I don't think we as residents, people on the lake, understand what understood what it is, we didn't know where to report it. We just kind of, I know my neighbor, when he had him take his jet ski and dissipate it, and it dissipated. So 21, we had an order, that's a warning. Jet ski, that's a good thing for jet skis, right? Yeah. Okay, so 2023, last year, a lot of alerts and warnings. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Some as long as 14 days, and of course everybody was up in arms about the warning because that was right at 4th of July. We had quite a few outbreaks. How are the outbreaks determined? Somebody reports it. The state will send somebody out to take a sample, take it back, and we'll have results in a few hours as to the concentration, issue a warning, or an alert. So, Sino last year, a lot of runoff from our residential areas, nutrients, a lot of nutrients in the water, a lot of rain, a lot of heat. So that's just moving things along. Okay, now, cyanobacteria is unavoidable. It certainly is a factor, and it certainly is under consideration in terms of the nutrients that flow in, and that's part of one of the reasons that our Sunrise Lake Watershed Management Plan is trying to address to reduce nutrients. As we reduce nutrients, there's less apt to be cyno, but it's not foolproof. There will be cyanobacteria, bacteria outbreaks, no matter what we do. Remember, our lake is very shallow. We don't turn over much. We have a mucky bottom. The rainfall so far this year, not a lot. Now, I asked the state, why do you think that is? Two sources. One was Kate Hastings, she's in charge of the cyanobacteria up at DES. The other one was Ted Neal. And he indicated that, both of them indicated lack of rain. One theory is last year with all the rain, a lot of the nutrients, I don't know, this is a theory, washed out. So, also wind this year. I don't know if there seems to be more wind this year. So that keeps things flowing. Okay, this is the risk assessment. You know, you look at the water. What does the bloom look like? Check the mapper on the state. Is it okay? Is it not okay? Report it. So, you know, they look at it. So, what do we do about cyanobacteria? One of the things that we're lucky to have is a watershed management plan, and we also now have a grant to start implementing aspects of that plan to improve the quality of our water. And if you improve the quality of water, you diminish the activity of cyno and other issues. So one of the things is the water-based approach, the watershed-based approach, which is what our plan is. Watershed doesn't mean just at the lake. It means the entire watershed. And the watershed takes into account the water aspect flow and goes way up to the top, almost takes the entire town. So you go up to Drew Drive, all that runoff comes downhill. Everything comes downhill and goes into the lake one way or the other with watershed, storm water, so forth and so on. So how do you try to reduce? The main culprit is phosphorus. Phosphorus is usually a collection of nutrients on the bottom. They're contributed by storm runoff, which is about 60% of our nutrient inflow. 22% is septic. From the runoff, your septic isn't kept up to date. It's clean, it's direct, that can happen. Runoff, shoreline erosion, how do you protect it? Outreach education. That's one of the things that our watershed plan is asking us to do, and we form, and I'll get into this, our advisory committee, to educate the public on how to do things. Not that you can find them yourself, but this might be a local organization that will help you, direct you, and provide information for you to do things to reduce shoreline erosion. Land conservation, Conservation Commission, shoreline buffer zone, that's state and local, shoreline permit enforcement. That's tough. That's tough. DES doesn't have the people to go around and look, are you properly managing your shoreline? That's really neighbor against neighbor. Legislative advocacy. There's a lot of things that have been going on, and I'll get into the legislative advocacy that happened this year. Another big thing is septics. Pump them out. We did have a pump out program. We need to work on that. Local regulations. There's a lot of communities in New Hampshire now which are putting forth septic ordinances and regulations. Some are town ordinances, some are health ordinances. And where they're aiming at, it depends on how strict they are. Main thing is get your septic system inspected, make sure it's pumped out in 3 to 5 years. I have been researching, septic systems are very expensive if they fail, very expensive. But there are programs within the state and federal government that provide some kind of relief in terms of funding if you need to replace the septic system. It's not going to pay for the whole thing. I'm still researching that. There are grants out there. It's income driven. So as we get more information together, we will get that out to you. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Dave. He's going to talk more about what you can do in terms of...
You want me over here? Okay. Thank you, John. You can hear me okay? Just checking. Okay. So we've talked about some of this, but it's just really important to emphasize. If you see it, report it. That's in some of the work I do back in my home state in the Adirondacks. That's what we say. We try to get lake associations to encourage all their members at their annual meetings on this topic, that if you see it, report it. And as John said, it's very easy to do. You'll see a couple of our brochures, our newest newsletter and our first newsletter that went out. Right here, just so you can have it, is the website, is the phone number, so you see it, report it. Don't be shy. That's the big thing. If you see it, report it. And they are very responsive. Kathy will tell you, they came right to our beaches. Anywhere you wanted to test, they would test and they would go, and they're very cooperative and very important. So that's vital just for our role, what we can do to keep track of what's going on. Because as John says, we haven't had much this year, but that's just because of conditions. It can switch rapidly. We could have the second half of August a heat wave after major storms, and it could pop right up again. So it's important that we stay vigilant in, if you see it, report it. Fertilizer. Fertilizer is a huge culprit when it comes to if it's too close to the shoreline, especially in cove areas or others where the nutrients. And John talked about phosphorus, but it's not just phosphorus, it's nutrient loadings, because that can be nitrogen, and a lot of the fertilizers are nitrogen-based to increase grassy areas. And also, so you shouldn't be putting fertilizer with 200 feet of the shoreline, which also relates to this program that John will mention again, the New Hampshire lakes, where you don't have your lawn go all the way right up to the beach. You have buffers, you have natural areas, you design your front so that you're not having massive runoff from your lawns into the lake during a storm event, especially.
Aren't grass clippings bad too?
The glass clippings are not good, so you should not be putting them into the lake at all. You should be carting them away and putting them in a compost pile far away from the lake shore. Maintain your septic system. Have it inspected every 3 to 5 years. It's very important to do that. And pump it out, and on a regular basis, you should know what that is based on past history. But usually that's a 3 to 5 year basis, depending on how much you use it. I just put in a new system a year and a half ago. As John said, it was very expensive. Our system went back to my father-in-law putting it in 1970. And so it finally failed. And so we put it in and we completely moved it. Understand, when you look to replace or repair, the regulations for most of our septics that were put in 20, 30 years ago, even 40 years ago, those septics regulations are different. They're going to have you put the field where you can, further away from the shore. You're going to have the drainage go in a different direction. So it's very important. Sometimes it's repairs from the pipes coming out of your house and things of that sort. But once you get into the distributor box, just so you know, on septics, and if that has root-infested areas and is completely destroyed, then you're getting into a new septic system and going forward with that. There are a lot of companies that do it. I think one of the things we're going to try and work on is make sure we list on our website the area companies that do pump outs or inspections or septic design. But you think about this issue and folks say, my God, it's, how can I afford that? Well, how can you afford a roof on your house if you need to replace a roof? How do you afford other basic infrastructure of your home? It's a basic type of element of your home you need to maintain, just like any other element of your home moving forward. So it's critical that you keep track of that and move forward. And just so you know, if you move the septic system, unless you have a more expensive design, you don't want it under your driveway. You want it in an open area where you have grassy area, and you try not to let any trees come back into that area, so you maintain it just as a grassy area or weedy area for where your septic field should be. So again, it's more involved, but this first step is have it inspected every 3 to 5 years. I think one of the most difficult aspects of this is, and I've found it in other areas where I've done this work, is the amount of aging septic systems and old septic systems is way above our comprehension in the sense of, even from the state, when they say 22%, the data might be higher of the contribution just because the amount of septic systems that could fail and the age of them. And it's something that we all have to maintain. So those are the big items, really, to look at. And then the last one I'll say, as I mentioned before, and it sort of relates, is look at your shoreline. And make sure your shoreline doesn't have a erosion problem that's going, into those areas. We only have like one small path that goes around to our beach, and then it's all wooded in front, and things of that sort are buffered, so that we're going to look at how we can even make that one path less runoff when there's a heavy thunderstorm. But things like that, and it can make your property look nicer too, and do two birds with one stone, as they all say, from doing that. So these are the things we can all do. And the last thing I'll say is talk to your neighbors, because you don't have all the association members here from around. But bring it up at your association meetings. I know we do, and Kathy's great at that, making sure it's on the agenda of ours and others. Just talk it up. This is why we're here. And if the lake declines, our investment declines as well. So we really have to be vigilant in all this. So that's all I got, John. I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Part New Hampshire Lakes is coming up next week. They're still, I think you can still make an appointment. They come to your house, they look at your runoff situation or and they make recommendations. They're not going to report you that you violated your runoff. They're there to help you improve your property and hopefully reduce the runoff situation that you might have. So all you need to do is go to NewHampshireLakes.com and just follow the prompts, and I think you can still sign up. I'm pretty sure. Soak Up the Rain is a DES program. You contact them too. They kind of do the same thing. They don't come in and say, okay, you're in violation of that. Because if they did that, what would happen? Nobody would call. Nobody would call. So those are great resources to help you design your property for good stormwater and water management. Okay. Now, cyanobacteria, state plan just was instituted in November. It took them a couple of years to develop a plan. The state really did not have a plan how to manage cyanobacteria in the state. So the plan was developed, and I'll go over some of the things that the plan is supposed to do. Basically, it's giving authority to DES to do more investigation, more enforcement, more money for outreach programs, things like that. So this is basically the goal, is to prevent the increase and eventually control cyanobacteria. It is a problem all over the United States. The biggest problem I see is Lake Erie. That one is a bugger. A lot of green algae in that lake. A lot of runoff. Additional goals is to reduce the risk to us, your pets, livestock, and to better understand more research of what causes cyano. What else can we do on a scientific basis to control it? So these are the basic strategies of that plan. Nutrient reduction. That's what our management plan is designed to do, is to reduce our nutrient inloads by 10% in 10 years. I'm sorry, 20% in 10 years. That's an achievable task, but we have some work ahead of us to do. Education and outreach. You're seeing more interactive online in terms of cyno reports, data. There's data all over the place within the state. New Hampshire Lakes has a lot of information on cyno. Educate yourself on cyno. Drinking water doesn't affect us. Public water supplies, lakes that are used for drinking water. Manchester draws its water from Moses. I forget what the name of the lake is. Massachusetts. And monitoring. More resources to do more monitoring. What does that mean? More people to go out and quickly look at a bloom. Okay. So what has the legislature been doing to help with the cyno reduction? This year they passed 3 bills. And I'll get, the last one is, my view, is the most important one. The first one is the control of blooms in New Hampshire Clean Lakes program, resources. I don't know what it was, but it provides resources to do more study. HB 1103, that's the only one that's been signed by the governor so far. Don't get worried. All these bills have been signed and approved by the Senate and the legislature. They're going through the process to get to the governor's desk to sign. There's no reason to believe the Governor Sununu will not sign those. 1103, it just increases the ability of DES to do more law enforcement if there are shoreline violations, if you will, that might affect cyanobacteria. 1113, this just, if you have a piece of property that's abutting a water, source or a water area, you have to supply a study, an inspection on your septic system before you sell it. It's part of the sales agreement. In the past, that report goes to the state, it goes into a black hole. Nobody does anything with it, they just do it. So this statute, and you can go online looking specifically what that says, they just upped it a little bit, a little more enforcement in terms of if you don't do it, this is going to happen, so forth and so on. The last one, 1293, this is the one for me, and this talks about fertilizer. What this law basically does is now retail outlets who sell fertilizer are going to have to post signs, like Home Depot, if they have Scott's Turf Builder, they're going to have to post a sign saying, okay, even though it's on the bag of how much nitrogen, how much phosphorus, and so forth are to be in those, it doesn't preclude them from not selling other fertilizers, but they're now going to have to post what to do and how to do it and so forth and so on. So they have specific rates of application. How's that going to be enforced? Tough one. Going to be very hard. A lot of laws that are made locally and statewide are not enforced, just due to lack of resources. So this bill is online, you can read it. Quite a bit of nice stuff in here, but this does start to try to give direction legally on fertilizers and how they are applied by the public, commercial, and so forth and so on. So that's a big step. When I was in the legislature, we tried to say no fertilizer with phosphorus in it could be sold. That went down in flames. Didn't happen. So this is a good start.
Scott's lobby.
It's a good start. Okay. So, some people have asked about this here. Ever heard about this? The aluminum treatment of cyanobacteria? Okay. There are treatments for severe outbreaks of cyanobacteria. And in the state, there's only been 3 lakes that have qualified for this treatment. And the reason I'm bringing it up is I'm hearing from a lot of people, why don't we use the aluminum to treat the cyanobacteria? Our outbreaks are certainly not the best thing to have in the lake. But in terms of severity, it's not severe. Nippo Lake, 2021. Cost, $500,000. Kanaska, I can't even say the lake, in Moultonboro, just this year, $800,000. It took them, and those lakes are basically the size of our lake, okay? They had Lake Canasta, the cyano was all over the entire lake. Nippo, same thing. So it took them anywhere from 5 to 10 years before they could even get the grant. The grant, half on Moultonboro, the state had a grant of $500,000, the community had to raise $300,000. And it took them 10 years to get all the documents, all the tests, all the scientific data. So I just want to let you know that is a treatment, but our best treatment is to try to improve our watershed, our runoff, our septic system. That would be the easiest, most efficient for us here in Middleton.
John?
Yes.
Could I just say on that, the severity is very important to note. You got to really be in bad shape. So my analogy would be lowering your cholesterol or having a heart transplant. So what we're doing is lowering our cholesterol and inputs into the lake so we can manage and minimize cyanobacteria. These lakes that are widespread are in critical condition across the board. We never want to get to that place. we never want to talk about the aluminum thing, because if we are, everything's shut down.
Thank you. Good analogy there. Milfoil, been around for quite a while. We have done a lot of work on that, and it has grown and then it has dissipated. This is a map. This is a map that the state goes around and gets in their boat and looks in the water and clicks where they see milfoil. And then we have a plan how to treat it. So this is a map of 2014. So you can see a little bit in Pinkham Cove and then Warren's Cove. This right here is Tanglewood Brook. There's Pinkham Cove and down by the town launch. So this is this year, or last year in September, and you can see the intensity, and in between we've had a lot. I think 2018 or so, we had like 22 acres that were treated for milfoil. 22 acres out of 257, so that's 10%. So this is what we were looking at this year. And you can see that, everybody familiar with that little cove there, Dowling Street Cove? That's like dead water. Dead water. So when they went out and looked at that, they found a lot there. It's resurged in Pinkham Cove this year. So just so you know, Pinkham Cove this year we had divers here for 6 days, and they hand pulled it. In other words, they go down, they pull it out, and they put it in. In Pinkham Cove, we pulled out roughly 143 gallons. That's a lot more than we pulled, and I'll show you in the past. All right, here we go. Back in 2013, we pulled out 950 gallons. Follow me, and DASH, what is DASH? Diver Assisted Suction Harvest. In other words, the diver has a boat with a big vacuum cleaner on it, the diver goes down, he pulls it, and it sucks it up. It can be costly, $10,000 or more per treatment. So we dropped down to 331, 2060, 2016, over 1,000 gallons. So I think at that time, we in the community started talking about, well, what are we going to do about this? We need treatment. So the state says, yeah, I think you do. So in 2019, we added a herbicide. What do we call it?
Procelacor.
Procelacor, and it just devastated the milfoil. So you can see in 2019, boom, and right down to nothing. Bugger. You can't get it all. If you pull a root out and a little bit of that floats around, it'll go right back in again. All right? So, 61 gallons in 22. Last year, 71 gallons. This year, total 243 gallons. Most of that in Pinkham. Now the state's going to come out, click, 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 see what comes up sometime in August, maybe September, and then we'll see where we're at, and the decision will be made as to our next step. If we continue to do the diver thing, that's fine. The diver cost this year is $8 grand. $8 grand. The state will pay roughly half of that, roughly. So we're going to keep an eye on the milfoil, and again, most of it is in Mr. Hart's code. So we're going to keep a watch on that. Okay.
And while Cindy gets up, just so you know, milfoil is an invasive species.
Yep.
It's not native to our lake or this area, and that's why it's so difficult to control, because there's no natural competition to be able to reduce it. It's an invasive species that runs wild. Many of you know of other types of invasive species that can impact water or trees or other sorts of natural systems.
And tell us how it spreads.
Well, one of them, as John just said, just
Okay, how it spreads?
yeah,
Okay.
especially in the low cove areas if they're going too fast or things of that sort.
Yeah. Spreading, we have a very shallow lake. Milfoil can grow right up to the surface. So if it's broken up through wave action, broken up by boats, jet skis, everything else, that's kind of what spreads it. But the nutrients that we have in the bottom of our lake does add to it all. So you can't get rid of it all. When we drained the lake a few years ago, the theory or the thought by residents was, well, that's going to kill off the milfoil. Nope.
Persistent bugger.
Persistent bugger came right back. So how do you stop that? Slow the milfoil areas. Let people know, like fishermen who don't know the lake, slow down when you come into an infested body of water. Things like that. Okay. What's that? Oh yeah, cleaning boats.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that part of the challenge when somebody goes from one lake to another?
That is. I don't know about you, I've seemed to see more fishermen this year, bigger boats. We have bigger boats on the lake, more powerful boats, I see anyway, and going faster, pulling tubes. And so I don't have a problem with that, but that can aggravate things. But Clean and Dry is a big program for lakes that you don't transfer what you pick up on this lake or what they pick up and come into this lake. The other thing that you try to impress upon fishermen is their holding tanks. The new thing, wave boats. Wake boats, you know, where you ski behind they make a big wake. They fill their ballast tanks with water. Do they drain all that out when they pull them out and go to another lake? We don't know. We don't have an inspection system here. We don't have enough people to volunteer. Other lakes, the big sevens, they do. They have equipment that's like, I don't know, $100,000 that'll wash off your boat when you pull it out. So even in your own personal case, if you're going to another lake, make sure you clean the boat out. Okay.
Okay.
I'll shut up.
I'm going to talk a bit about the volunteer lake assessment program water testing. And I just want everybody to realize when we say water testing, it's not like back in Mass where I used to work. We tested weekly and sometimes daily for bacteria, and people would say, oh, how was the water today? Oh, it's great, or it's not good, whatever. This is more of the knowledging, meaning the overall quality of the water. So we test for different things. And we test, have been testing since '97. I've been doing it now, this is my second year. We get the results the following spring. Our water quality overall has diminished, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And the watershed report card from the assessment summary actually lists us as poor. So how do we test the waters? We go out on Captain John's boat. We go out on usually a Thursday morning between 10 and 12, and we have Judy who records all the data, and these forms are very, very specific, very detailed, and it's good quality control product that we have to specify what's the temperature, what's the weather, is it cloudy, is there a lot of wind, any variables that might be with respect to the lake. So we do a lot of testing. First slide said 13 sites. So as you can see, we do kind of the perimeter of the entire lake, starting at Pinkham, over in the Barrett's Cove, over the lake lands, a couple spots on Nicola. We have a deep water, which is right off the dam, not too far from the dam, over by the public boat launch, and then we also do 2 tributary water entering the lake. And these are the tools that we use. We have our sample containers. We fill our samples. A second disc that's used to determine how clear the water is. We take that disc, throw it off the side of the boat. It's attached to a measured chain, and we determine how deep we can actually see this second disc, the white and the black distinction. In order to get some of our deeper samples, at the deep spot, we use this really funky thing called a camera bottle. Open it up, drop it in, and take it down to the desired depth, and then you drop water at a certain depth. And we use that in a couple of different ways. We have the plankton net if we are testing to see if there are plankton, and we use that, again, drop it down, pull it up, and then you can actually see the little plankton. And then we do, like I said, the tributaries. We do one over at
Tanglewood Brook.
Tanglewood Brook, and then the other one is over on Cleveland.
Yeah.
So what do we test for? And again, this is not like we're testing for bacteria on a daily or weekly basis. This is, we're looking at 3 times a year. These are the things we test for. The chlorophyll A measures the amount of algae growth potential. Transparency, how clear the water is. And, you know, are there particulates that are floating in the water? It could be algae, what we call the muck, it could be whatever. Turbidity, again, suspended matter. Total phosphorus, this is one of our biggies, because again, this indicates how much of the phosphorus is coming in from all the areas that we discussed earlier. Conductivity and chloride, again, can indicate sources of pollution. Color. We do E. coli, which is a bacteria. We do that at one location, although this year, when we had the state biologists come out, we did a lot of, we did 8 locations.
We didn't have to pay for it.
Which we didn't have to pay for. Again, the phytoplankton, what's in the, what type of plankton, what type of little critters are in the lake, and then dissolved oxygen and temperature. Again, measurements as how healthy the lake can be. After we collect our samples, we take them to the Jody Connor Limnology Center. Usually John puts it to Concord right after are done with our sampling. These slides are a little bit tough to see, but again, this was what we did from last year. And the one on the left is we're looking at conductivity, pH, chlorophyll A, transparency, and conductivity is fluctuating. The pH has been stable. Chlorophyll and transparency have been somewhat stable.
Yep, that's okay. If I may. That report, when we get it, we publish it on the town website so that you can see it. You can also go to the state website and navigate and see those reports all the time. Just go into water, rivers, DLAP testing, and they'll have the reports there. But we put them on the town website. They come in sometime March. We also, when we do, we've done our first testing this year. When we get the preliminary results, we will put those up also. Okay.
And again, it's a little bit difficult to read. However, this is a summary of the watershed we did last year.
Average.
We have all the locations, and when it says Pillian, that means surface water. So when we go out into Pinkham Cove, and Bartlett's Cove, Lakelands, the beaches, over in Nicola, we take a sample from the surface. We take a sample in a white bottle, transfer it to the brown bottle that has an acid in it for the phosphorus test, and then we refill the white bottle, and the lab then does all the testing. And it's really hard to read it, but the total phosphorus has been high. There's one that I want to point out.
The next slide will give you an idea of the phosphorus, yeah. There you go.
This takes a look at the total phosphorus
By year.
year, and then over here, you can see the last couple of years whether we've improved or had a decrease. And again, we don't do a lot of E. coli, but the E. coli that we have done over by the Lakelands Beach, there's a ditch next to it that takes runoff into the lake, and that's been very high with the E. coli.
Oh, okay. So go back to that other slide there. The E. coli, you might ask how much does all this cost? We only pay the state for phosphorus testing. All the other testing, we don't have to pay for, and we pay for the E. coli test. So, and the reason there's nothing in the far column is because we haven't got our results from our testing in June. They should be coming out shortly. But you can see the phosphorus, we improved last year when we had all the cyanobacteria. I don't know why that is, but we did. So we're keeping
But
it.
again, that may go towards the fact that some of it's getting washed out too.
Right, right.
And John, we should thank the lake associations that donate to our
Oh, yeah. In terms of funding, particularly for the milfoil, we have a couple residents, one resident in fact, and we appreciate it very much, who gives a generous donation to help us mitigate and pay for some of the milfoil mitigation. He's very generous on that particular individual. And then the associations, there's two associations that provide some monies to offset water testing and milfoil. One is Hampshire Shores and the Lakeland Association. So they've been generous enough. The other one has been generous is the public. The town of Middleton has contributed over the years monies. We haven't had to do it, ask them to do it, but we have a capital reserve fund for the milfoil.
Expendable trust fund.
Thank you, expendable trust fund. I will be corrected every time I say that.
I wasn't going to correct you that time.
That's okay.
Let me go.
Those monies are used to offset costs. That fund has about $10,000 in it. We haven't had to use it because of generous donations, the grant that the state does, and so forth and so on. So we've been very, very fortunate. Okay,
What's the E. coli?
I'm sorry?
At what point is the E. coli tick?
Okay, yeah. That doesn't reach the point, I think it's like 100 is the number. Yeah, that E. coli reading doesn't mean you shut things down. What we're noticing here is the increase of E. coli, particularly in that one particular spot. In that one particular spot, during heavy rain events, it takes a lot of storm water from uphill. It comes down into that on the other side of that beach. There's also a lot of runoff that comes off the road and so forth and so on. The management plan and the grant that we have is going to look at that and try to determine what can be done from a flow point of view, education point of view, where's it coming from, and what do we do about it. So, yeah, those numbers aren't anywhere near of we're shutting you down. I mean, I think I pointed out earlier, there's like 5 spots that in the state that are shut down. The beaches, they're closed. Okay. So, who's doing all this stuff? Well, and what things do? We do water testing. We do educational programs. We're bringing resources to you. We're doing programs like this. We had one last June. Weren't many people here. Could have been a lot more people here, but that was a great one. A lot of good questions among our group. We will continue these education programs as time goes by, both an event like this. We're going to be at the Old Home Days luncheon. We will be right underneath the pine tree with a little display like that. So hopefully we can do that.
And John, just to point out, with our state grant, or EPA grant, all the work that we do with the exceptional data collected by Joni that we send in is a match. So we serve, our volunteer activities serve as a match, because you have to have a local match for the state or the federal grant, and that helps. Our hours are the volunteer match to help make that feasible, and all the work that we do. We meet monthly and have so since September, and we thank the Conservation Commission for their guidance and their help in all this as we're under their umbrella.
Yeah. So if you like, our meetings are held
Third Thursday.
Third Thursday of the month, 5:30. Please come and join us. We'd like your comments, help, whatever you want to do. Okay, what are we doing to improve the lake? Okay, these are the key things that we've done so far. Again, 2022, the management plan was developed before this committee was even really formed. The one that manages that is Stratford Regional Planning Commission. They're the one that wrote it. They're the administrators. In 2023, that's when we were formed. 2023, we began conducting monthly meetings, education programs, like I've said. And then 2024, we've been awarded the grant, but typical government, time for everything to get through. I was just advised that the EPA has released monies, but the one that manages the monies is the state. So it's going through the process of the state approval. Basically has to go to the Executive Council for a sign-off by the governor and the Executive Council, and hopefully that should be done in the fall, hopefully.
There's a summary of the programs it's funding printed out up front.
Yeah, that hasn't changed from last year, so. Okay, these are some of the outreach programs we did, and the first one we really did was during the craft fair. And we set up a little table of information. I think that was pretty well received by the public, at least the comments that I got. was our first attempt for education. The one in June was boat safety. We had Lieutenant McLean come up from Marine Patrol. That was a 2-hour presentation. It was good. I don't think I'm there. We're going to be there yet. So again, Middleton Old Home Days, we're going to be there for whoever wants to come over and talk to us. So it's important things that we have now. We have flyers over there that were published. Kind of gives you an idea of what we do, who we are. Our website, our email is sunriselake.wac@gmail.com. You got questions, comments, send them out. We're working on another media process. We haven't gotten there yet. Maybe Facebook. I don't think we're going to do a website, but I think Facebook, maybe. We'll see. But we appreciate your help, and we're all in this together to help make the watershed a better place. The watershed is the major area of our water, and the recipient of that watershed primarily is the lake. So, before I get questions, and we're more than happy to take questions, I'd like all the committee members that have worked on this thing to stand up. Okay, and they have done this team right here. This team right here have put together all these materials.
You too. Kate.
Come on, Kate.
Stand up, Kate. Yeah.
So these people have been working on their own diligently, doing education, pamphlets, all this stuff putting together. And we wouldn't be where we are now. We're getting better to put all this stuff together. So, questions?
John,
Anybody have questions?
I just one more thing to add, because it may come up a question, but just, Cindy over here did a new brochure, just so you know, there's a new one out there, and we're going to be circulating and have them around. But I wanted to highlight the grant, which we sort of talked about generally, is a big deal. It's around $100,000 in work, and here are the 4 elements of the grant that they're going to help design. A culvert replacement on Lakeshore Road because of the runoff issues, repair of damaged drainage infrastructure on Lakeland's beach area in designing that, construction of a rain garden at the Hampshire Shores Beach, and stormwater drainage study for the lake. So these are big things that will lead to even bigger things to help protect our water quality. But it's not easy to get one of those grants, and for Stafford, for the county and the town and John's leadership to put together, it'll be very important, and there'll be about 18 months of work starting in the fall once the money is released.
Yep. So that's a question.
So I noticed that.
And you are?
Darlene.
Thank you.
The clams, there was Chinese, Japanese.
Snails.
Snails. How did they get into our lake?
How did milfoil get into your lake?
Some Republic don't put aquariums in there.
They're in every lake. Yeah, yeah.
I know that at Providence Lake, but.
The bad news is they live about 5 years. After they're 1 year old, they have about 50 live babies per year. Okay? So if you see them, take them out, bury them or put them in the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, they send us to.
They're that.
All the
Yeah.
time.
They
Take them out. They don't belong here.
Yeah, they actually, they are used with people who have aquariums to keep the walls of their aquarium clean. So you can buy these things on Amazon for your aquarium. Chinese mystery snake.
Do they come in like on boats in the?
They can get in the ballast and boats.
Can get in the ballast, but the only ballast,
Adult form or like
Don't know exactly, but they are prevalent throughout. They're on
They
Lake
also-
George.
they also live out of the water in the muck. So I have asked DE, I can't tell you how many times, and the same answer is there is nothing that we know of right now that can stop them. And one of the recommendations last year was, well, when you have your children, your grandchildren, your children, form a little party and see how many can pick up.
Yep.
The ducks do eat them.
Well, escargot, yeah. So they were brought here originally by the Chinese as a food source when they came to California.
Do ducks spread them?
I've seen ducks trying to, if they're,
I know they'll
they'll eat them.
but I
They'll,
don't know if they'll spread them through your.
I don't know.
bottle form or whatever.
Yeah, I don't, frankly, they're a nuisance, just like geese. I don't think the state is paying a lot of attention. Right now, they have other fish to fry. Another question, any other questions? Yes, Dave.
You mentioned about the jet ski.
Name?
Brian Dupers.
There you go.
You mentioned about the jet ski, kind of churning up the,
There's one.
does that actually help? I mean, if you dissipate the,
I'm not going to say whether it helps or not. It just, I know in my experience what he did was just dissipate it, and it was still there.
I mean, if that's a legitimate way to,
It's-
address it.
I would say that's not a legitimate way. I would say that's,
They just pushed it away.
I don't think that would be a crude manner of getting rid of
I'm not even
cyanobacteria.
talking about jet ski, I'm just saying, if you can break up the clump, does it spread further, or does
Well, yeah, it would. It would. I mean, if you're going through the water, depending on the conditions, remember, it could spread out.
So, cyanobacteria exist naturally in every lake.
Correct.
It's only when they're fed intensively through phosphorus or other nutrients that they create those blooms and become dangerous to animals and people who have impaired immune systems.
Right. Now, you sent me I think it was you, about how to scoop it up. There was maybe it was you, or somebody sent me, was it you?
The town,
There was a town out west that, there was a guy that had basically a scooper.
yeah, that was.
And what it was just like a big scooper. He goes along the surface of the water and he sucks it in, sucks the bloom out. Because the bloom doesn't go all the way down. It's on the surface. So I know the state, based on my interaction with DES and water quality, they get phone calls, emails daily on how to treat this and how to do that. They know about that. I'm not sure how. They didn't comment on how effective it was or wasn't his. But that, there on the milfoil, there are people who harvest the milfoil. They come with big machines and they just rake it up.
The only other thing I'd say on that is dissipating it if you want, you have to be very careful because you don't want it to touch your skin. As Judy will attest, Judy had a horrible experience last year that took 6 months to get the rashes off her from the cyanobacteria. And the other is when you're churning up near shore, you don't want to create an erosion or churn up other grasses or other things that need to stay in place.
Remember,
or spreading of milfoil or things of that sort.
the
So you want to be careful.
Yeah, the cyanobacteria, you can ingest it from water spray. If you go around a water spray.
But Judy, tell your story. It was in your jet ski ballast, you think.
It was in the, where your feet go in the jet ski. And it was on the edge of my beach, but I walked on the dock. I didn't go in the water. I walked on the dock, got in the jet ski, and went up. Vice versa coming back. What I didn't realize was the water in the jet ski got me. The back of my, still see the marks, the back of my right foot, somebody's right or left, right, broke out in this horrible blister. And it was itchy and it also hurt. And I went to the doctor. He gave me a prescription cream, which was like a cortisone type thing, that don't do that, it made it worse. I went to a dermatologist, he gave me another prescription, and it was a bacterial infection, which you don't use cortisone type things. And more than antibiotic. And it's still, it's different. I feel the difference on one side compared to the other, and it still has this itch once in a while, and it gets irritated very easily by whatever shoes I wear, because the skin
So-
is not that healthy.
So again, to emphasize, skin irritation
Yeah.
is a major health concern if you're going in direct contact with a
And
balloon.
the animals is really bad.
The main story here or lesson showed up there, self-assessment.
Yeah.
Take a self-assessment before you start running around in the bloom. Yeah. So,
Because my jet ski is at the other end of the dock, which was nowhere near where I could see, and it's a deeper water. And I thought it was okay.
But it had collected, and she didn't know it.
any other questions, comments? The other thing, yes, go ahead.
Cassie DeRoche, short drive.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because it seems like a lot of people that aren't on Facebook or they don't come to these meetings, they have no knowledge of what's happening. So is there some kind of town-wide or citywide plan to educate?
Okay,
As far, like,
we're
with
trying,
mailing
yes,
or-
okay. We have this flyer.
Going to send it in the next
You
2 weeks to every
distributed-
resident in town.
Yeah, we distributed roughly how many would you say, Kate, by hand?
Oh, you're pretty fun.
We printed 500, and we hand-delivered them around the lake.
That was Judy.
That was Judy.
That was Judy
And
that did
Kathy
that.
put them in the Hampshire Shore mailing, the first
Yeah,
one.
and we put them in Hampshire Shore mail. So we're gonna do another mailing of this newer release here, and we're going to hopefully mail it to every mailbox in the town. And we have resources to do that. We have a budget from the Conservation Commission to do that, and we're gonna get that out before everybody leaves. Yes?
The town website, middleton.nh.gov, we also put minutes, we put the agendas, we put all the information up there, so that's a resource that is not Facebook related. That hasn't
Yeah.
been-
Also, our members here of the committee, Joni put stuff out on Facebook. Kate, over there, oh, she doesn't put Facebook. Judy does, so we put it out on Facebook.
Some of my
So,
neighbors aren't on Facebook, so I try
I'm not
to
either.
educate them. but-
I'm not either. And education of activities for any organization are difficult because some people say, I don't go on Facebook, how am I supposed to know? I don't have the answer other than mailings is the only way. Mailing is not cheap. It's expensive. These pamphlets right now are pretty much homemade. No, not pretty much. They are totally homemade. This was designed by Cindy. And all this is saying who we are, what we're doing. So we're going to get those out before everybody leaves, hopefully, for the summer.
I follow it.
Yes?
I know septic is a big issue.
Yep.
And I don't think there's any way the town can, I mean, it would be nice if the town could require that everybody gets their septic inspected. That would be nice. But I have another neighbor who, I have a lot of dogs visiting, or my own dogs. And I'm like pretty fanatic about cleaning up dog poop wherever it is, on my property, outside my property, wherever. But my neighbor doesn't believe me that dog poop does something to the water. So he said he was going to Google it. But is there, I didn't see anything in this brochure that
Well-
I can bring back and say, yeah,
No.
it does.
There's a lot of things that we should be doing that we can't cover and everything, but dog poop is very toxic to water. Bad, bad, bad. And what are we doing? Well, that's part of our education process as we go down the road. But I can tell you from a town point of view, I'm chairman of the planning board. And we are looking at septic systems There's a lot of towns now that have, like I said earlier, regulations for septic systems, what to do, what not to do, what you can do, what you have to do. Some of them are very strict, include fines and everything else. So the planning board is looking at that as an ordinance, possibly, or a health regulation. Health regulation is sometimes easier to pass because it does not need a town vote. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying what it is. The Board of Selectmen will approve it. A town zoning ordinance requires town approval, town meeting, a vote. So we're doing a lot of research on regulations, what they should be, what they shouldn't be, and we are looking at that. Will it get accomplished this year? Maybe, maybe not. But the town has expressed support for that, meaning the board. So we're just moving on, doing our due diligence, what it is, how complicated we want it. If you want to see what a septic ordinance looks like, go over to New Durham on their town website, and they have a pretty extensive set of regulations. So it is on the plate. It's on the plate from, at least from the planning board. It is another thing that we have on our agenda here. Septic is big, big, big. Stormwater is the other one, but septic, and we have a lot of, I believe, a lot of systems in the town and within the watershed that I would say need work. And regulations is one way, education is the other. So I hope that answers that. Anything else? Thank you for all coming, we appreciate it, and take your pamphlets, and
Great question on inspections.
we'll, yeah.
Yeah, we want that.
So,
Yeah.